Hi, it's Megan and welcome back to Megan's Read Library. Today I will be doing my March wrap up. I read a total of 12 books, 5 audiobooks, 2 graphic novels, 4 ebooks, and then 1 physical young adult book. I'm pretty excited with what I read this month, even though there was only 3 that I read that were actually on my TBR for March, but that's just the way the ball rolls sometimes. So without further ado, I will get into the books that I read. And I'll start off with the audiobooks. So I'll just show you my Audible library. And all of these books in the last month are the ones that I read. So the first one was The Last Wish by, if I say this wrong, Andrzej Sapkowski. I signed up to do the buddy read with Elliot from Elliot Brooks, but I didn't get started on it until last month. I really liked the audiobook. I liked the narrator, but I think that the way that the stories were put together didn't flow well for me. So it was kind of hard for me to follow because it would be having one story and then it would stop and transition to like another story, and it felt like some of the background stories were connected, but they weren't chronological, which was kind of confusing to me. So I want to reread it as a physical book and see if that makes a little bit more sense to me. Although I really loved the narrator, so the actual full stories I'll probably listen to them as audiobooks as well. And then the next audiobook that I listened to was West Cork, which is a true crime documentary series basically, and it's really like you're listening to a TV show where people go and interview everybody involved in the case and whatnot. And it's about this woman, Sophia. She was a French citizen who had a vacation house in Cork, Ireland. And right before Christmas, she was murdered and found on the side of the road, like a short walk from her vacation house. And the the crime has not been solved. It's been over 20 years now. There is one very particular person who is the prime suspect, and it goes through from the time leading up to her death to the immediate time afterwards, everything that took place, why certain people were involved, why certain people were interviewed, and so on and so forth. And it's really, really detailed. And I love true crime, like documentary series, like TV series. I love watching it. So I was like, an audiobook would probably be like interesting. And it was as if I was in the kitchen like cooking and it was playing on the TV. It sounded so much like that. And I really enjoyed it. So if you like that, I would recommend it. The next book I read was a reread or a re-listen, and that was Virgin River, which is the first book in the Virgin River series by Robin Carr. That was... The narrator was kind of like iffy to me, and also I don't know if I just never realized it because when I was reading it, it didn't like click with me, but some of the words that were used were very old-fashioned words, and the story is supposed to be around the early aughts of 2000, maybe even going into like 2010 timeline. So some of the verbiage was kind of like, who says that? What? And I guess I just never noticed it because I would glance over it while reading, but the audiobook definitely brought some of that to the forefront. And then the narrator, it was whatever. She did the female characters good, but the male characters were just kind of like, I know it's like hard, but a lot of times I just wish that they had a female narrator for female voices and male narrators for male voices. I know that's like super hard to get and like pay for and whatnot, but that's just my own personal thing. And the final 2 books that I read were both by Caitlin Doughty. I think is how it's pronounced, Doughty. And it's Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other... What's the full title? Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory, and From Here to Eternity, Traveling the World to Find the Good Death. She is a mortician, and the first book is more autobiographical about what led her to get involved in the mortician arts business, and then she includes a lot of history and stuff like that. The second book is shorter and more about death rites and practices around the world, different cultures, and in our own culture, and why we do certain things and the legality of a lot of stuff. For me personally, this was like a really, not amazing, but just super informative and like thought-provoking read. Because about in February of 2016, my stepdad died in a really bad car accident, and his wishes were to be embalmed. So when he was embalmed, he looked way worse than I ever could have imagined seeing him in real life. So that was, I was 24 years old, 23 years old, and that was like traumatizing for me because he was just such a vibrant, huge, lovable, life of the party man, and then seeing him in that form was not helpful, did not offer me closure. It made the accident just that much more visible to me, in my opinion. So, and I've been to multiple funerals growing up and stuff, and I never ever liked the look of embalmed bodies. I understand that that's people's wishes, that they don't have, they have religious reasons, they have personal reasons, there's all kinds of reasons why people want to be buried a certain way. Me personally, it's just never clicked with me. And a lot of what Caitlin Doughty says just backed up a lot of like my own instinctual dislike of the embalming process and the funeral process and the costs and like how it's a business. It's a business. And I don't find anything wrong. People need to get paid with and stuff like that. But a lot of what she points out just clicked, and I was just like, yes, like why do we do this? This doesn't make sense to me. And so she's a big proponent of cremation and natural burial, I think, actually. Natural burial. And it just made me, and I don't think it's morbid, but I think some people would find it morbid, but it made me think about my own death a lot. And it was something that I already had to think about when I had to build my will, because I went on a deployment. And when you go on a deployment, you have to set up all these legal procedures for, like, in the event that you die. And, I was 23. I was like, I don't really have a lot to, like, give. I don't have an inheritance or money to pass on to anybody. I don't have heirs or anything. Like, what's a will? Well, the will ended up for me being, what do I want done with my body? What do I want people to have their last memory of me be before I am put away in whatever fashion forever, essentially. And so for me, I always wanted to be cremated, and I still want to do that. I think that's what I primarily want. It might change in the future, but at 23 years old, I had to decide, like, in firm legal words, what you're going to do with my body in the event that I die. And I think that this book and the subsequent book, which talked about just various different cultures, really was an amazing look into that perspective of, we're going to die one day. It's inevitable. It's what's going to happen. So how do we deal with that? How do we get there? And what do we want our people that we love, that we leave behind, to deal with? And so for me, I loved it. I thought it was a great discussion. I thought it was really awesome. I understand that not everybody could read this book or listen to it. She does get kind of graphic with some of the things, but it's kind of funny. Like, it's tongue-in-cheek kind of humor, and she doesn't shy away from the graphic details of death, and I think that that's important in our society. So overall, I think both of those a 5 out of 5. I could be wrong. I'd have to check my Goodreads, but I really, really enjoyed them. So that's that. For the next 4 books that I read, they were ebooks, and 3 of them were from a series. Actually, all 4 that I read were a part of a series. I binge read the first 3 in the series because that's what I do, apparently, is I just binge read series whenever I start them. And that was the Innkeeper Chronicles by Ilona Andrews. As y'all know, I love Ilona Andrews, and I'm working my way through all of her books. So, Clean Sweep, One Fell Sweep, and Sweep in Peace. And then I also read Gaslight by Danica Dark. But for the Innkeeper Chronicles, they are a fantasy/sci-fi, because there's like traditional, what we would think were traditional fantasy aspects, like werewolves and vampires and like creatures and critters and magic, totally living side by side, fully spliced in with like aliens, intergalactic war, travel, all this other crazy stuff. And it blended so well together. I was concerned that it was just gonna be like too like wishy-washy and like it wouldn't make sense. But man, did it make sense. She did it so well, and I loved her explanation for everything on like why certain things happen. Gosh, that was so good. So the whole story is that we follow the innkeeper who, I can't remember her name right now. Dina. Dina is her name. So Dina is the innkeeper, and she's one of multitude of innkeepers on Earth. And the inns are living beings. They're sentient to a degree, and they end up creating this like symbiotic relationship with the human, the innkeeper, and the house. And so the inn itself defies all known laws of physics that we know like on Earth, but of course like in the galaxy they like know way more intense they have more intense knowledge of like physics and sciences and all that stuff, right? And then she always says that the physics goes so far that it just becomes magic at that point, and it defies logic because it's magic. And so what they do is the innkeeper, so she has a guest, right? She has guests come, they're whatever breed of alien nationality or whatever, and she tailors the room to that guest, so it's the perfect room for that guest. And so like each room is morphs and changes to what the guests need. And in the second book she does this whole like war conference, and she transforms the entire inn into this like massive, opulent, beautiful like conference hotel type thing to like host the conference that these warring nations are having and whatnot. And just, it's so wonderful the way that, and it's quirky and it's cute almost, but there's still like action that happens. And so it's just a really fun, really, really fun read. I recommend it. They are primarily sold as ebooks. And you can find them on Kindle for fairly cheap. I think they're like $4.99 a piece. You can get them in print book, but that's going to be more expensive. Like $11, I think, something like that. But if you're into like fantasy, magical stuff and sci-fi, this is like the perfect blend. I can't imagine anything being done more seamlessly. The next book was Gaslight by Danica Dark. and that's the fourth book in her crossbreed series. She has like a whole universe, and she has multiple series within that universe. I like I started off with the Crossbreeds, which is like the latest series. So I don't know very much about like the other series that come before this. I loved books 1 through 3, and book 4 just kind of it was I don't know. I think I gave it like a 3.5, because there's a romance that progresses, and the main character gets the amnesia trope thrown in there to make her like forget. But then that's the book that they finally like get together and have sex after the amnesia. I'm like, for 3 books, they know that they like each other, especially in the last book. And then for the first 5 or so chapters of this book, you know they like each other and they have all that sexual chemistry going on. And then you wait till after she's suffering from amnesia, still like in the midst of amnesia, for them to have sex. What? It was just so frustrating. I don't know. I don't know about that one. I need the next book to come out, and we'll see. We'll see how I feel about the series overall. But for the final books, let's see if I can wrap this up in under 20. Sorry. The one physical book I read was Tempest and Slaughter by Tamora Pierce. This was a slow-moving book, and I loved it because of that. It was just like, it put me back into my feelings of being 13, 14 years old and reading all of her books and never having been a reader, so I was super slow as a reader, and just digesting like all the words and like the pictures and what she's creating, the world she's creating, and I thought it was wonderful. I keep wanting to call him Numair. He's not Numair yet. Aram Draper starts off, and he is 10 years old when he starts off, and it ends when he is 13 or 14. I think it's 14 at the very end of the book. And so there's like the time jumps, and it's pretty fluid, like, because you don't want to go through every detail, but it's fluid, it moves, and he is living and going to magical school in Carthag, and I love it. I don't know how to review this book without being super spoilery of the entire world. If you like magic schools, and you like kids discovering and learning and like doing, improving on their magic skills, I would read this. You don't have to read the other books to like make sense of this, although if you did want to read chronologically, I would recommend reading The Song of the Lioness Quartet first, and then this one. And then I would wait until all 3 of these books came out before continuing on, because spoilers for the second quartet. Yeah. Because it's great. I love seeing Numair as a child, as Aram, and the process in which he gets to where he gets. It was wonderful. And then for the last 2 were the graphic novels. This is The Wicked and Divine, Volume 6. This finally was starting to make sense of a lot of things that I was not understanding. There's still some things that need to be explained, but since this is the 6th volume, I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and finally, storyline's picking up again, and shit's happening, and I appreciate that. And then Volume 3, Paper Girls. I really like this one. They're still not like 100% sure on like what's going on. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm definitely getting the hang of it, and man, there's just something there that has me keep going. There's a lot of time travel. Yeah, time travel. I'm pretty sure they're staying in like the same localized area, but just different periods. And the way that this ends, man, I need volume 4. I need to read it. So that's it. Well, this video is over 20 minutes. I'm sorry. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know some of your thoughts down below if you've read any of the same books I have. If you haven't, and you want further information about it, I will gladly discuss it. Let me know your favorite books that you read in March. Alright, see you later. Bye.